Welcome back to Bill Reed's Roleplays, Preschool Shenanigans, Chapter 3. Gwen looked at the shield, the new halberd made of shadow, and then the burning bright flame above, just mouthing, "Wow." She snapped back to the current situation and glanced over to the fire extinguisher. It was around the corner of the soda can machine, so she darted out from her cover, diving, rolling past the obstacles to slam her back against the wall covered by the machine. She thanked the gods that she wasn't too fat or curvy. This was not a lot of space to hide behind. The angles worked for her. Reaching out to the extinguisher came free easily enough. She pulled the pin and, glancing through her goggles at the machine, saw the weak point, did a mule kick to the machine, dislodging 3 cans. She slowly dropped down and snatched them up. She was in luck. The nozzle of the series was a 37B, a perfect size and fit for her plan. Loading in a shaken-up soda can, she took aim at Gun Girl and pelted her in the shoulder. Launching cans at Gun Girl probably wasn't going to do much, but she got distracted from her friends. Besides, the heat expenditure of the weapon she was using should cook the spray of the soda into a nice sticky goo. This, she hoped, would help some. Then, using some more dodge and roll maneuvers, she fired again from another location. The last can was fired directly into the girl's face and exploding. Gwen made it to the sports department, diving into racks of padding. Gremlin Knight thought quickly what to do. Her friends were out there with that maniac that had made weapons. Well, she can make weapons too. She saw some canned air, sports tape. There were some lawn darts, tennis balls. Oh, and that was a godsend. An auto pitcher and 2 buckets full of balls. She got to work getting things in order and pushing them to the shop entry. While Gremlin Knight was busy assembling her makeshift soda cannon, Onyxia and Emerald Torch worked to keep Gun Girl and her horde of minions occupied. First, E.T. used his pyrokinesis to pull the emerald flames from the burning. Any more of the area around the minions he had struck. They were inside a department store, for crying out loud. His powers could easily get out of hand and create an inferno. While the metahuman and her insane Joker posse wannabes didn't care about rampant destruction, he did. Drew had his mom, his sister, and her friend all here, not to mention hundreds of other innocents. Onyxia, on the other hand, was focused purely on the munitions-powered menace. "Hey, Sergeant Rocket, let's dance." She donned her ebony armor just like the MMO she loved, Eternal Quest. She practiced a lot, but that was fighting her brother, not a homicidal maniac who could conjure guns seemingly out of midair. Gun Girl switched to a combat shotgun just as Onyxia slashed at her heavy Gatling gun. "Eat hot lead, dark elf bit." Just then, the first of the soda cans from Gremlin Knight's makeshift can struck her and exploded great fizz all over the clown girl. She turned to fire at her, but had to dodge a swing by Onyxia's shadow glaive. Gwen was able to roll away and go after new items to make into whatever other junkyard weapon she can conceive of next. Meanwhile, Jackie Joel carefully watched the battle. She was frankly stunned at how well her kids, plus Gwen, were doing. Those two had been with her training, of course, for a while, but Gwen? The little droid girl was unexpectedly quick and battle smart. Still, there was no excuse not to wrap up this problem up quickly. Innocents were in danger, though she had to move out of the way. Using her super speed, she grabbed the various civilians who were in the line of possible fire and ran them to the bunker entrance. Thankfully, the sporting goods section had been the least occupied of the areas on the floor. Her instincts as a hero and that of a mother were currently conflicting, but she knew she had to trust her kids enough to know to keep themselves alive long enough before she could come in and deliver the big finish. Meanwhile, Gremlin Knight in the sports section gave up on the idea of the tennis balls. In lieu, she grabbed a case of Reach carbonated sports drinks. These will be way better, she thought, as she quickly scribbled a note and traded the reach drinks with a note that said, quote, I owe you for 6 drinks, and then left the Grinding My Gear salvage business card in addition. Gremlin Knight sat the red reach drinks by the auto pitching machine, pulls out a mint tin out of her bag, thinking, no better time to test the latest batch than right now. She popped open the lid and opens each of the 6 bottles of fizzy reach, dropping a blue tablet in it, and then locking the lid back down on the bottles tight. Please don't blow up yet. Please don't blow up yet. Please don't blow up yet. She prayed in her head. Taking in a quick breath and shaking the impromptu projectile, she maneuvered the machine to take aim at the gun girl. She plugged it in, and ready, she held a very strained bottle of drink over the RPM spinning wheels. With her other hand, she hit the button on her phone. In Kim Jerry's voice, "Alrighty then, poopy pants," to get the attention over the gunfire and shouting. This was, of course, done with her modified Farnsworth, so the volume could really hit some decibels. If the store's loudspeaker system could handle the extra boost that was. Gremlin Knight stood there in her school uniform, wearing her goggles, and then spin ducked behind the machine and loaded in the bottles. Doot, 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 doot. 6 times the launchers barked out her projectiles, and not one exploded prematurely, for which she was thankful. The bottles arced high and were lobbed out and down at the gun girl. Each one, if shot in the air, would explode into a shower of quickly formed icy hail. If they impacted a surface, the bottle would just spread ice thick and strong like the strength of aluminum bars. Drew would recognize this ice immediately, as from the attack at the Gotham Botanical Gardens. Gun Girl was slammed with 4 of the projectiles. One missed entirely, but covered the area in that thick, strong ice. Meanwhile, the mate of munitions was captured in what amounted to a full bodysuit of frozen reach fizz, as well as the moisture of the air coming in from the outside. He screamed her out her frustration and rage. She wasn't done yet. She pulled the trigger on the captured shotgun, which shattered the glacial prison. Fortunately for her, that was a bad move. Pain rushed through her hand. While it freed her, it also caused her shotgun to dissolve in the sparks as her hand was banged up by the black blast of the shot. She screamed in agony until the flat of the ebony glaive slammed up against her temple. Nizzy took advantage of this distraction of the entanglement and the subsequent escape to smack the hell out of the gun-wielding Jersey girl. Gun Girl fell over, still partially captured by the ice around her legs, keeping her stuck to the ground. Finally! Good job putting her on ice. Nixia wasn't quite up to speed on her banter. She looked around to check the rest of the battle, since she had been occupied with mostly not dying. Drew, the Emerald Torch, was flying around, mostly distracting the gang posers, giving them hot feet, burning the seats of their pants, etc. I kept his swath of fiery destruction to a minimum, and well below the threshold of setting off the sprinklers, thankfully. There was a sudden rush of wind as the speedster was busily cuffing the wannabes as they were being taken out. Blurs of blue, green, and white could be seen. Also, the wind picked up outside. It seemed that the Texas Twister was coming around to this side of the store. Time for us to get out of here, Onyxia said, her voice oddly modulated in her shadow form. Mom was going to be probably pretty pissed, but she had taken out the cameras where she could. What surprised the heck out of her was that Gwen, of all people, was able to pull off the move she had. There was no way she was Normie. She had to be one of them, like her and Drew, superpowered. She went over to Gremlin Knight and whispered, "So do you go by MacGyver? Never mind, we gotta get back before Mom loses her ever-loving mind." E.T. flew around a corner, and suddenly the verdant glow disappeared, and the human form of Drew could be seen, though with one big change. Despite changing back into his non-flaming form, his skin was the color of a ripe lime. "Damn it!" cursed as he leaned around the corner and urged his sister and his friend to hurry up. Gwen watched as her ice bombs did their jobs. She did wonder if this would be the better batch. How long could this ice last? The last test left a yard, a ice rink for 8 hours. She hoped this would be quicker to melt this time. And as always, her mind went into number crunching mode, only to be snapped out of her arithmetical observation by Nixia clocking gun girl with her shadow halberd. Ouch, Gwen thought. Gribble Knight was moving things out of the way when the blur was seen. Is that a speedster? But it didn't look like the Flash. Could be one of the new breed. Just hope they were on our side. She absentmindedly tapped her USB recorder on the headband of her goggle assembly to record for later investigation, and tried, in vain, to track the blur, along with the disappearances of people when the Nixie and Emerald Torch made their argument for retreat. Gribble Knight had to agree. She did not want to miss out on the promised dinner because Mrs. A was mad at them. Gwen made her way to join the other two, and at Jet's questions if her name was MacGyver, she snickered and then sighed, "Maybe." Then, seeing E.T. change, she blushed a bit and covered her mouth, giggled, and followed the pair. She remembered too late she owed the vending machine money for the 3 cans, and facepalmed as she hurried along. The teenage action trio arrived back at the changing area. Drew's skin was slowly turning back to its normally pinkish hue. "Really, brother, you need to get outside more and get a tan," Jet joked. They heard a whistle from not far away. "Mom, we're over here," Jet yelled. She looked down and she realized she was still clad in her shadow armor. With a wave, she swooshed it away, just as the umbral construction faded back into normal shadows. She looked over at Gwen. "So we can all trust each other not to say anything to Mom about this, right?" Drew could not help but roll his eyes at his sister. "You know she has powers too, right?" He turned to Gwen. "We only know each other's biggest secret now. I promise we won't out you." But what unsettling was the implication that she shouldn't out them either. He probably should have added that was as long as she didn't go over to the dark side, that is. "Crap, your suit's kind of a mess. Reach fizz all over the place." Just at that point, Jen Arlington came around the corner, conveniently dressed back in her civilian garb. She breathed a somewhat dramatic sigh of relief when she, quote, spotted them. They looked no worse for wear, well, with the exception of Drew and Gwen. "G2, R1, we need to get you into an oil bath right away," Jen chuckled. "Just kidding. It looks like you must have had a drink explode on you. Don't worry, it won't stain the fabric. In fact, you should be able just to towel it off." She turned to look at her son. "Drew, your clothes are covered in soot." She gave him a very serious look. "Don't tell me you went to look at the fight despite me telling you to stay and watch the girls?" There was what appeared to be genuine anger in her voice. "You are so grounded when we get home." Mrs. A felt bad, but these were the consequences of living a double life, and he need to learn how, now, before it cost him in the real world. Jen was curious if either of the girls would come to his defense or allow him to take the blame. Gwen had hurried along with the pair. The last of the Cherry Reach bottles in her hand she was able to stuff in her bag when she tripped. The bottle cap, already overpressurized, popped. When her body came down on it, boom, it exploded into her. Luckily, surprisingly, the glass tablet of condensed negative action thermicide, or as she dubbed it, NAT, didn't activate. So she was left covered in red drink. Gwen was thankful to Jet as she came over, not to mention the fact she looked like she was cosplaying Carrie. She smirked at the arrival of Jet and asked what she called herself, MacGyver. Maybe. She finished putting things out of the way and followed the pair back to the changing area. That's where they met up with Mrs. A and her odd but funny way of talking. Gwen just TTS signed, beep boop, at being called G2R1, and then brushing the fabric clean with gym clothes that came with the bundle, listening to Drew's dress down and scolding for doing what they were told not to do. She felt all guilty inside, tapped Mrs. A's shoulder to get her attention, then signed and TTS'd, "Sorry, ma'am, that was my fault. I wanted to get a drink and went to the vending machine. They followed, and that must have been when the explosion hit. A drink spilled, and there was a fire and an explosion. Must have gotten all over Drew. Please don't punish him for my bad, and please don't deny me the spaghetti jet promised," she added hopefully. She beamed a bright smile and put an arm around the twin's shoulder, making the silliest group picture opportunity ever.